Welcome guys to Norwegian Modeling Bench. This is Kenneth and this is the 15th installment on the CV-6 build. So today I will be covering the SBD-3 Dauntless. I am using the KA detail upset for these ones. And as you can see, I have done more or less the same thing as for the Wildcats. So I hope that you enjoy this one and that you would like to subscribe and of course like and comment this video. So enjoy. The first thing to work on is making an opening for the cockpit. It's a bit tedious work. Be careful because the plastic is a bit brittle. And I can definitely recommend the extra sets because the transparent plastic isn't that brittle. Then I'm using liquid cement, and as you probably know, this takes a bit of time to cure. So I add the most important parts, like the cowling and the fuselage parts, and then I am using reversed tweezers to put some pressure to hold the parts together for 24 hours before I'm continuing working on the parts. Of course, you can use super glue. I think the best results is with the liquid cement, but of course, everything works in that sense. Then the next part is to add the resin cockpit from KA, making sure that it is aligned with the top of the fuselage. Using CA, extra thin CA glue to make sure that it's fastened, and then gluing the fuselage to the wing parts. For the wings of the Dauntless, you have the option of adding the PE parts from KA and then making either closed or open dive brake parts. And again, use some time to get this perfect, otherwise the result will be a bit bad afterwards. So make sure that it is square and neat, so it's aligned with the lines that you can see on the wing. Then using liquid cement to glue the wings to the fuselage, and then again let it cure for 24 hours. Of course, again, you can use super glue to speed up the process, but things get a bit more messy, I think, when doing that. Then it is the tail wing. Make sure that you put it from the right side, otherwise you will force the fuselage parts open. So from the side that I showed here is a good one. And then of course aligning the tail wing so it is ailerons actually, so it's aligned with the wings. Then adding the tail wheel before letting it all rest for 24 hours before doing some more work on it. Then it's adding the PE dive brakes, just using some CA a bit on the edge, and then adding the PE part to the wing. So make sure that it is perfectly aligned with the top of the wing before moving on to the next side. And this is where you will see if you have done a good job making these openings for the dive brakes. And then I'm continuing on the other side, just doing one side first, because you have a middle part that you would definitely like to be aligned with the rest. So I'm starting with one side and then adding the middle dive brake afterwards. So adding some CA and then adding that middle part so it has the same angle as the other one that I have already added. And then you, of course, you move on to the last break that you will of course have the same angle as the middle part. So making sure that these three parts have the same angle is pretty important, so you get a good end result. I think these dive brakes make a really good addition to the look of the model. So having them both open and closed, as I've done for some, is a good thing. Then it's adding the legs for the wheels. I'm using the resin parts here from KA again. These are very, very brittle parts, so make sure that you have some spares because you will definitely break a couple during the build. Adding the wheels, again, this is resin wheels, very nicely detailed, as you will see later on. So using resin CA glue to add these. So that's a special glue from VMS that I can definitely recommend. So not a regular CA glue for this one. And then you have the part that holds the bomb, which is a PE part, where you can follow some lines on the underside of the fuselage to make sure that it has the correct placement. So then we have the doors for the wheel openings. Not sure what it's called again. Sorry about that. And I saw from some pictures that these lean outwards and they're not perpendicular or anything towards the wings. And then it's adding those antenna lines on the top. This is a bit of a tedious job because you don't have much room for errors in terms of the placement. And of course adding it to the side and not in the middle for the Dauntless. Again, look at some pictures and so you will see where it's going to be placed. Then I've primed it all up and starting with the light gray color on the underside. So using the same colors as for the Wildcats. So these are scale colors, acrylic colors. I can definitely recommend those. And then I've added the interior color, also black color for the walkways on the sides, and then masking up with masking tape on the sides, so a mil in width, before adding the blue-gray color. And as you can see, I've used blue tack or white tack in this case to mask off the cockpit area, which is a good way of doing it instead of using masking tape, I think. Of course, using an airbrush definitely yields a lot better results for these things than using a brush. And then I'm painting the inside of the dive brakes red, and that definitely gives you some extra color to the otherwise quite monochrome scheme. I'm using a dirty red color from AK in this case because I think it had the correct depth of red for this one. And then just a bit of paint on the brush at the time so it doesn't seep through the holes in the dive brakes. So use some time, take several layers before reaching the wanted results. And then of course it is the pleasant task of painting up the tires with some rubber color. I'm definitely using a magnifier visor to do this because you don't have a big area where you're going to put the color on. You definitely want to avoid painting the rim a rubber color, I would say. So this is a really thinned out rubber color, so it's a bit easier to apply. And then it's adding the canopy. Just these are resin parts. I'm not using the Pontos PE. The PE would definitely be more to scale, but the look of these canopies I think is very nice. So and I wanted to have the same appearance for all the planes, so opted to use the KA detail upset for that one as well. And I've bought 2 of those, so I have enough for at least 10 planes. There are some extra parts, so you could do 12, and that's what I've done on the Dauntlesses, so I've built 12 of those. And then it's adding the decals or decals. Same approach, using a softener and a setter from VMS. And then, of course, using a gloss varnish before adding these. That then you avoid the possibility of silvering and so on from the decals. And when applying these, as you can see, I'm using tweezers to place them roughly, and then using a cotton bud to soak up the softener and making sure that it is correctly placed before I'm more or less tapping the decal into place so it adheres to the surface a bit better. Then using a brush that is moistened with water so you can neutralize the chemicals from the softener. Same thing here with the decals on the sides. That is also being placed in the same manner. And I also added the numbers, and there is of course a lot of controversy here around which numbers and so on. It was for the exact air group. I am not going into those details. I don't think that will be the biggest aspect of when looking at the model. If somebody is very into which numbers, then of course do it correctly. Then I'm using a oil pin wash as I did for the Dauntless, so mixing up some Abteilung oil with the white spirit, and then using a brush to place the oil in the panel lines and so on the plane. After having added the pin wash, I'm using a slightly moistened cotton bud for removing the excess oil wash and moisten then with a bit of white spirit. Not much, but just a bit, so I can remove excess oil wash. And that also gives you, of course, the visibility of the panel lines, but also a bit of a wash on some areas where you would like to have some more weathering. And then I am applying a filter. It's a 50-50 of the blue-gray and light gray, using also 80% thinner, which gives the plane a bit more of a faded look. Of course, these were out in the elements, exposed to sun in the Pacific, so they would be a lot more faded than the original blue-gray color they had. So I think that all in all gives a pretty good result in terms of how I see the historical pictures of these planes. And then finally adding some matte varnish so we can protect the work and get the correct appearance of the paint, which definitely wasn't glossy. And when that was done, I had to add the propellers, but that I also showed in the Wildcat video. So this is the end result. I hope that you found it interesting. I definitely like the end result. So now my air group has the Wildcats and the Dauntlesses. So next up is the Devastators. So until next time, keep safe.